What's more important, the journey or the destination? Actually, it's the company. Journey to Well, the podcast, was birthed with the intention to cultivate relationships. You can expect a plethora of conversations on nervous system regulation, breathwork, human design and astrology, cycle alignment, energy and spirituality, and honestly, so much more. But the heart of this community is to witness the journey back home to ourselves, rediscovering our innate power within. I couldn't be more honored to take this journey with you. Be well, my friend, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, welcome back to the podcast, Journey to Well. My name's Hannah. Today, we get to talk with Allie Chandler. She is the founder of Upsell Health, and she does marketing for functional medicine. She has an incredible journey that led her to where she is today that I had the pleasure of hearing already and get to learn more about on the podcast today. But one of my favorite things is when we take these really dark times in our lives, or confusing times, or pain moments in our lives, and that is really what becomes the catalyst for the trajectory of the next step, the next chapter, maybe even the rest of our lives. So, Allie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. She's also a 5/1 splenic projector, and I was just saying, I feel like I've fallen off talking about human design quite as much on the podcast. So maybe we'll get a little bit more into human design today. But first of all, thank you for coming. And second of all, I would love for you to kind of introduce yourself. Who is Allie? And if you want to even dive into your stories so we kind of lay the foundation, feel free.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, so my background is an eclectic collection. So I originally went into teaching. So when I was 22, I was teaching seniors in high school. I was only 4 years older
Oh
than
my
them. It was absolutely wild, teaching them creative writing and all of the senior writing electives. And so it's relevant to my story because I didn't love doing that. I feel like I need a lot more like freedom and a lot more creativity. And I guess I've always sort of been an entrepreneur, so it felt weird for me to be stuck in this position of you have to follow this curriculum and these are the hours, and it just didn't work for me. So I
God.
ended up applying to grad school in San Francisco. I'm from Michigan originally, and I just always have been called to the West Coast. I think it's a lot more my personality. So I went on a backpacking trip right after I quit this teaching job and went with two girlfriends. And basically, overnight, my health changed, and it changed for about 10 years after that trip. So it's a long story of how it took me to get diagnosed and everything that I went through. But long story short is I got Lyme disease on that trip. And basically, overnight, I started having cardiac issues and neurological and digestive and trouble swallowing and like panic and anxiety I'd never had before. And so that's a huge part of my story was just all the years it took me to figure out what was wrong and to get the right protocols and the right treatment and to find the right practitioners in the midst of this big career change and this big move across the country. And, in the middle of it, I got married, and there's just so many parts to that of really figuring out like who I am and who am I in this new kind of chronic illness that I'm dealing with, and how do I reconcile like who I know myself to be at the core and my soul and all of the creativity and freedom that I crave that I suddenly wasn't able to achieve. And so that's how I got into functional medicine, was because I had to learn how to heal myself and find the right practitioners to work with. And so there's kind of a cool story about one of my Lyme doctors. 4 years later, I ended up working for him and doing all of his marketing and high ticket sales and everything. And then he started a supplement company that got really, really famous and brought me with him as his head of content. And so that's really like the trajectory of my life and how it changed what I'm doing completely with my career. I never would have gotten into this had I not been sick myself.
Mm, what a wild story. And I think one of the things that I always think about, because I don't know if I shared this with you, but I've definitely talked about it on the podcast. I've had a long journey with lower back pain, chronic pain, and yeah, just a very interesting journey there. And especially about 2 years ago now, I had a year where I didn't work. I couldn't drive. I could barely like walk down like 100 feet down to the stop sign. Um, and it's really wild when you're in it, because one, you think that it's never going to end. And
Yeah.
two, you can't, like, for me, I couldn't figure out. And to be honest, this is pretty recent in my history. I'm still figuring out how it is building me and what pieces of it are going to be beneficial, and like the ignition, right, of like the next chapter of my life. So I guess the first question really is for people that are in it right now, and then we're going to zoom back out and I have a good discussion there. But for the people that are in it, in quotes, like whether this is a physical pain or just a really dark season in their life where there's a lot of underlying similar energies, right? Of feeling lost, feeling hopeless, feeling depressed, feeling unsure, feeling in pain. I think you truly don't understand like chronic pain until you go through it, and how debilitating it is, and how you can't like actually think straight. And that's wild. I've never experienced that in my life. So for people going through that right now, going back to that girl that went through the 10 years of this, what would you tell her? What did you tell her? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it at first, I was only looking for physical healing. I was trying to find the right practitioner who would come in and save me. That's how I felt. I felt like I couldn't do anything for myself, and I
Wow.
needed someone to just come in and like tell me exactly what to do. I was very compliant. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like this. And so I think a big part of what shifted for me was when I realized that I have to be the one taking control of my own journey and not just like I got stuck in this victim mindset of just, man, this is really awful. And I'm 26 and I'm bedbound and I'm watching my friends get married and have kids and travel and do all of these amazing things with their career. And like you, I couldn't walk to my own mailbox. I couldn't stand enough to make a smoothie in the morning. I had to drag a kitchen chair, sit down and like, get up, go get the ingredients and go sit again. And it just was really hard. One of my worst symptoms was I had hyperadrenergic POTS, which basically every time I stood for the whole time I was standing, my heart rate was incredibly high and my blood pressure was really, really high. And
Oh,
so it felt like it was just this like adrenaline, like, fight or flight the whole time you're upright. Then you sit or lay down and it kind of calms back down. But that was one of my major symptoms for a couple years and made it really hard to navigate the world.
yeah.
And so I think, yes, taking more control over my own journey and understanding my part in it, but also I think I also needed to understand that this is going to be a mental journey, an emotional journey, a spiritual journey. You're not just like a physical body. There's so many parts to you, and they all have to be open to healing. And so, what really shifted for me was believing that I could heal. That sounds so crazy and so simple, but I think for many years I was just like, this is just my life. Like you said, like this is it. This is how I need to adjust and learn to live this way. And that's really hard because I had my quality of life was so low. So I went into this whole like limbic system retraining, learned about the nervous system, did mindset work, did trauma therapy, EMDR, all of these things.
Wow.
And I finally was like, you know what? I deserve to feel good. And I know I can feel good. And, I think that whole internal shift that I had to experience is a huge reason why I was able to heal. But I think people that are in it right now don't give up hope because there's so many advancements that are happening at all times. And for some people, it's just like you haven't found the right root cause yet. Just keep going because once you do and once that's like opened up to you, you feel like you have so much hope and then you have all of this motivation to keep going. But
Mhm.
for everyone listening who's still like in it, just know that your body is doing what it can right now to heal. Your body doesn't want to feel bad. So these reactions you're having and these symptoms that you're dealing with are a result of your body having this natural reaction to whatever stressor, whatever root cause, whatever toxin, whatever pathogen that's going on inside of you. So I think learning that and knowing my body is always doing its best to help me was really great because then I felt like I really got to trust my body again and be like, okay, like you're not my enemy, right? Like we're in this together. Let's, heal, let's do it. And this is what we deserve.
Mm. And it's really hard because doctors, a lot of medical professionals, they tell you, you're going to have to just get used to living this way, or you're
Wow.
always going to be in pain, or you're always going to have to get the cortisol shots or cortisone, whatever they are. I never
Yeah.
got those, but like you're always going to have to be dealing with this. And
Mm.
that was actually something also that I definitely aligned with. I mean, even sometimes I was just watching those videos of like positive affirmations or healing. For me, I'm a big meditator. So, like the heal your body meditations kind of thing, but reminding myself and surrounding myself with people that believed that as well. Because isn't that a quote? Like, your best friend is that person that believes in you even when you don't believe in yourself, or like those are
Yeah,
your people. Like, if
totally.
when you lose faith, surrounding yourself with people that have the faith and understanding that what works for one person might not be that key for you, but it's bringing you on the
Yeah.
journey that now you have a deeper understanding. Like you said, like you did limbic system and nervous system and trauma healing, and you really kind of developed this holistic approach of it's not just my body, because it's really not. It's like there's so many pieces that are connected, and that doesn't mean that you have to heal all of them to be healed. Like, I think that we're always on this healing journey, but it's going to bring you on that
Definitely.
next step, right? The next, like, here's the next thing, and here's the next thing until you find some things that really click for you, and maybe it's multiple things. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed. And one of the things, an analogy that I like to share, because it helped me understand that it's not always going to be like the one thing that clicks suddenly. So I'm sure you've heard this analogy before, but think of the inside of your body as a bucket, and it's this total toxic burden that your body can handle. And so you might have like, you're choosing to maybe buy things that aren't organic. So all of the glyphosate and the chemicals and things that might fill up a little bit of your bucket, and you might have Lyme disease, or you might have, mold exposure, and all of these things add up, right? Like they fill this bucket and your body can handle them until the bucket starts overflowing. And that's when you start getting like this inflammation in your whole body. But for me, it wasn't just one thing. It was this whole combination and like genetics and lifestyle factors and all of these, like I said, root causes. And so that's what actually gave me a lot of hope is once I found out that I did have Lyme disease and co-infections, my doctor was like, well, we're actually not going to start with that. We're going to start with supporting your immune system and maybe taking some of these like low-hanging fruit, stressors out of there, out of your bucket, so that your body can hold it all and your body can sort of like calm down enough to be able to do these more intense sort of treatments and detoxes later. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me that it's, a combination of things for a lot of people, at least with, chronic pain or like severe chronic illness that's been going on for many years. It could not be just one root cause. And it could. I mean, everyone's so different, but that analogy was really helpful to me just to be like, just keep going. Because whatever you're doing actively, you're pulling water out of that bucket and you're giving your body a little bit more of a break and a chance to sort of handle it on its own.
It's making me think of when they talk about people that go viral, or like artists, right? That like get discovered from this one viral song. And I heard some sermon or like some speech about it one time. And they're like, it wasn't that one song that made the person famous. You didn't see all of the work that they did. You just didn't see it. All
Right.
of the work, the incredible amount of music that they put out that didn't go viral.
Yeah.
And then that one song, and we think like, oh, I just need that one thing. And we do. We get stuck in that. Like, once I find that thing, or once I find that partner, once I find that job, that house, fill in the blank, then it will be, all said and done for me. But it's not true at all.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think yes, you don't see all the work that was put in because I often get asked like what was the one thing that
Yeah.
helped you heal? And I know there was a turning point and I know I was doing a particular treatment at that time, but I also was like I spent 10 years
Yeah.
working on this and working on my mindset and doing all of these detox tools. So like who am I to say that that was, the one thing that helped? But I do think, yeah, it is quite a journey for people, but just I think having that mindset of I'm committed to this and everything I do, whether it's meditation or mindset work or protocols or supplements or, detox tools, that's all pushing you in the right direction, right? So just keep going because you never know when you're gonna have that break. Like I remember multiple times in my journey where I had really like deep relief and I had a really strong like lapse in my symptoms and I couldn't tell you, the one thing that happened, but it was for me just very consistent. And I remember one time because I always have been a really active person. I played competitive volleyball my
Mm.
whole life and I've always like lifted and did like boxing and strength and conditioning. And so when this happened and I couldn't even like walk at all, I lost such a part of my identity because I was someone that lifted weights 5, 6 days a week and that it helped me with my mental health too. Like I needed
Mhm.
it. And so I remember there was one moment I was sitting in this tiny apartment. I lived in Monterey, California, and I lived in this like really rich neighborhood, but I lived above someone's garage. So I was like with all these, bougie houses, but I'm like literally in a two-stall garage sized studio.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and being like, I've been laying on this couch for 3 days and I was like, this is not going to be my life. I will not live this life. It's not what I want. I'll do whatever it takes. So I had started this whole very incremental journey to try to get back into movement. And I remember looking up bed yoga and
Mm.
like chair yoga. And I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm way too young to be doing something that's this simple.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, what path do I need to take? Because I want to get back in the gym and I want to get back to these like 90-minute, almost 2 hour workouts because that felt good to me. And so sometimes I feel like it's almost you can make this decision and you're like, this is not going to be, I'm not dealing with this my whole life. And that
Yeah.
sounds really like crazy to say, but I feel like hearing that internally, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get up every day. I'm gonna take 2 more steps closer to the gym that's down the street. Or today I'm just gonna drive there. I can't even go in yet, but I'm going to put on my tennis shoes and I'm gonna just sit in the parking lot for a few minutes. And then eventually over the course of multiple months, I got myself on an elliptical and I would do like 2, 3 minutes at a time. And like this morning, I just got back from doing leg day. I almost was like a 2 hour workout. I did some cardio too, but I mean this was over the course of years building my body back up and I think part of it too is just making that decision. Hey, whatever it takes to heal, I'm fully in. And I know it might be like up and down, and I know it might be a lot of different paths that we take, but I think making that commitment to yourself is also very important.
How inspiring, seriously. For me, it was walking in the pool, which chair yoga, I always see it in like nursing homes, they do chair
Oh,
yoga
me too.
and
I
like
know.
walking in the pool, it's all old people. And like granted, I also went in the middle of the day most of the time, but it's first of all, it's humbling because there is so much like ego and mental stuff that you have to get through, but it also builds this, yeah, kind of resiliency of this is what I can do right now and I'm going to do it rather than wait till I can do a full workout, which you'll never get there if you're
No.
waiting. So what can I do right now to build it up? And then what happened for me too, and I'm wondering if this is similar for you or if you have a different kind of addition to this journey, but I fell in love with it. Like, some days I still just go walk in the pool because I can wear my AirPods and I
Mhm.
listen to sermons or books on audio or podcasts or just music. Sometimes I'm very stressed, and so I'll just listen to classical music. I'll just, have my little dumbbell, like my styrofoam dumbbells just walking through the pool, but I'm not embarrassed. I love it, and it's very calming for me. One lady asked me, she's like, "It looks like you're doing like a meditation. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's kind of is a meditation, I guess." Like, I'm just doing a little walking meditation, and I fell in love with it versus a year ago, I was like, "Fuck, I don't wanna have to do this." So what was your journey in that as well?
I agree. So my personality my whole life, I've been very type A, very high achiever. Like I will run myself into the ground
Yep.
to get the work done. And it was always that way. It was like
Yep.
I need to be state in every sport and straight A's and be involved in everything. And so I think even like workouts before all of this happened, I would push myself so hard and it would be like, wow, my muscles are really sore, but I'm going to get up the next day and I'm going to keep going. And so I think this sort of forced me to slow down and to actually stretch my body and to do some of these more restorative workouts. Because for me at the time, even walking, like I lived maybe a 2-minute walk to the ocean. And I just walking was really hard for me because I had obviously was standing the whole time and my heart rate was really high. But what I started doing was I just remember there's this time I packed 2 whole bags of things that I was like, in case of an emergency, if I leave my house, I need food in case I have a blood sugar crash, water, electrolytes. Like I had so many like safeties because I had so many reactions to the world. But I
Mm.
remember packing these 2 bags and being like, I cannot believe I need to bring this much stuff to go 2 minutes down the street to sit at the ocean. But I did because my body was just felt so chaotic. But what I would do was I would just drive there and then I would walk like 2, 3 steps onto the sand because that's all I could really do. And I would just sit and I would maybe stretch like my legs or, I wouldn't do like even a full yoga. I couldn't at the time, but I just did some like intuitive movement and I would have never done that because like in my pre-life, I would have been like, this isn't doing anything. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm doing a workout unless I'm feeling like I'm gonna throw up after, which is not healthy. But I do feel like I've been able to rebuild that into my routine again, where there'll be days where I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna feel guilty still if I don't lift today, but I just feel like I need a day off, or I just feel like I need to like do, a hot yoga that's the restorative kind where you just hold a pose for 5 minutes and that feels really good to my body now. So I do agree that it almost forced me to relax and to like check in with my body rather than try to override what my body was telling me, which is what I felt like I was always doing before.
Which is a huge piece of cycle work, and that's something that I do in my business because it's made such a difference in my life. But learning your cycle is learning the communication of your body, is learning the energy of your body and what your body needs. Not that every single month you're going to have the same needs. I mean, it's really this constant listening, but anything, I mean, that's the tool that I use, right? To like learn to listen to my body, but I'm not even saying you have to do that. Any tool that you have that can intro you to listening to your body, learning the communication of it and tuning into it, because we're really not created, especially as women, but I would argue as humans, we're not created to be the same every single day. That's
Yeah.
why you are not in school right now as like an 8th grader. Like we go through, we progress, we grow, we learn, we develop, we change. We're always changing. Your cells are always changing. Was it like every 7 years you're actually completely
A new
like
person.
a new person, which is wild. So how can you think that every day you can go and do a 2-hour lift when your hormones are changing. Like, there's so many things that maybe you didn't sleep well the night before. Maybe there's internal and external factors. But one of the questions that you are kind of dancing around is in learning to trust your body, like that is by itself incredibly difficult. With a disease or chronic pain or a chronic illness, even more difficult. How did you navigate that, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think for quite a long time, I felt betrayed by my body. There were
Mm,
definitely a lot of lower vibration emotions. Like, I had a lot of grief. I had a lot of like shame around it too, because, if I was trying to go into a grocery store, I looked fully healthy. Like, I looked
yeah.
like this the whole time I was sick, and but 10 years younger. And,
Yep.
I would park as close as I could to get into a grocery store, and I could see people just like looking at me as I sat in, like, for a while I had to sit in one of the like wheelchair cart things to do my
Mm,
shopping, and I'm sure people were like, who is this girl? Like, she looks fine.
yeah.
But I experienced a lot of shame around it, and I experienced, like I said, the betrayal, and I felt that my body was my enemy. And so it's impossible to heal if you're constantly like, battling what your physical being is. And so I think I had to go through this almost like grieving process of, this is what I thought I would be. Like, I always thought I would be athletic and capable. And, I never really had health issues before this. So I just wasn't used to it. And then I had to accept like what I could do at that time and really pour a lot of like love into myself. Like, if this is how it's going to be, that's amazing that I was able to walk another 10 feet today. Or I started to try to shift into this, what can my body do for me now? And how do I show love and gratitude for that? And so a lot of times it was like these, I almost say like experiments that I had to do
Mm,
to push myself because, if you're sick or if you're chronically in pain or you have reactions to things, a lot of what you do is you take away, right? You take
mm,
foods away, you take triggers away, you kind of try to put yourself in this bubble. And I think that also doesn't help with the trust of your body. You're just removing stressors, which obviously in life we can't do. What we want to do is expand our capacity to deal with these things. And so I would have this little journal, and I was very reactive to foods for quite a while. And I would be like, okay, I don't want to just have six foods. Like, there was a time where I got down to just like chicken, broccoli, like very basic stuff. Um, and I was like, no, I'm gonna try, different things. And I created this little plan and, just tried to tell my body it was safe to eat this food. I think that's also an important piece of it,
mm,
is telling yourself that it's safe, even if you don't feel safe, but like, your surroundings and everything around you is safe. So,
mm,
like I said, like listening to myself, I feel like people who aren't experiencing chronic illness, you just go about your life. You don't really have to really check in very much because everything's working as it should. And so learning to stop overriding the signals that your body's giving you, whether you're pushing through fatigue or you're like ignoring certain warning signs or like cycle tracking and things like that,
mm,
and just like check in with yourself, take a quiet moment and just be like, okay, like, what do I want? What am I craving? What is my body asking for right now? So a lot of what I did was journaling to try to like track
mm,
patterns and see that my body was trying to communicate throughout all of this. Maybe I just hadn't been listening at the time. And so I think like a lot of the deep work that happened was learning about the vagus nerve and learning to regulate my nervous system and all of those components um, was really helpful for me in my healing of just being like, I can tell now that I was incredibly dysregulated.
yeah.
Obviously, like if I went into a store, the lights were like blinding and it was so noisy and I was so stressed, and it was like every tiny thing my body would react to. So I had to really dive deeply into nervous system regulation and in the trust factor of that, of just like, okay, EFT was great for me. It was very simple. It was easy to do. It took like, few minutes at a time. And then I also did DNRS, which is dynamic neural retraining, which was limbic system retraining. So all of those things, it was actually really active work to get myself to trust my body again. But now, like, I have friends I haven't seen, since before when I was sick. And I just saw one of them the other day, and he was like, "What are you taking? Like, what are you on? You seem so chill." Like, he hadn't seen me since I was pretty sick. And he was like, "You just seem like a totally different person." And I'm like, "Regulate your nervous system. It's amazing."
I
Yeah.
am though.
No,
Well,
I
and you
am.
said no, sorry, you go.
No, I said I am. I was agreeing
Oh,
with
yeah. You said something interesting. You said, I had all of these symptoms and maybe, or all of these signals, and maybe I wasn't listening, and maybe you weren't. But I also wanted to add that maybe you didn't have the language. And
you.
that's something that was a huge part of my journey is and I said it earlier, we have to learn the language of our body because our body doesn't speak in words. It's not going to tell you like, "Hey, these lights are really aggravating me because our nervous system is dysregulated." It's just going to have you react to it's going to have this reaction to the bright lights, and it's going to come with this sensation, right, of heart beating fast, feeling like you need to flee, feeling like panicky, right? Maybe sweating, maybe like the bubbling or like the beating of your chest, feeling like your heart beating in your chest.
Yeah.
But it's not our body doesn't speak in words. It's not going to tell you words. And so learning that and then doing things right like EFT. I actually hadn't heard of the limbic system one, the D and
DNRS, yeah.
yeah, I haven't heard of that one. That one's interesting. Um, but learning tools that you can speak, like you also speak to your body, not through words. You have to speak to your body through sensations and through, like EFT and like doing these different things. So I wanted to add that too, because sometimes
Hmm.
we can judge ourselves for like, oh, I'm just not listening. Well,
Right.
maybe you just don't have the languaging. Maybe you just don't know how to listen or you don't know how to listen. Like we oftentimes some of us don't even know how to slow down. And that I think is building trust. It's honoring, oh my gosh, I heard this wild thing the other day. I don't even know that I can regurgitate it, but building your intuition is honoring what your body is saying. It's hearing it, it's listening to it, and then doing it. So it's like you hear your body saying, I don't want to weight lift today. We
Right.
hear that, and then our mind and our ego gets in the way, and you're like, "Yeah, but Monday is leg day, and
Yeah.
I need to I have a wedding coming up, and I need my thighs to look good and my booty to look good, and I can't rest." And then you have all of the external noise coming in of if you take a day off, you're lazy or, no days off, no pain, no gain. All of those words and messages and you combine that with your inner messaging, then we hear our body. Maybe we are listening to our body, but we're not honoring it. We're not actually stopping and doing that Bikram yoga or the yin yoga, right? Like the long stretches. So that I think for me, well, I think that's just a lifelong lesson for everyone, whether it's chronic illness or not, of you have to learn the language of your body and then honor it.
Yeah, I honestly still struggle with that. That
Oh
is
god, me
something that
too.
I work on constantly, and I think a lot of it is we live in this culture of like go, 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 and it's so competitive and it's so we pride ourselves on being the busiest one. Like even in my friend group, I notice myself feeling like I want to be like, look at my calendar. I'm on calls from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. And then I'm on an app call with my dev team at 10:30. Like I want to like almost prove that I'm doing the most.
Mhm.
That's still such like an ego thing for me.
Mhm.
Of like, why do they need to know that? And that's also my choice. And like, but also it's not good. Like, why am I bragging about this? I really
Yeah.
need to like take a look at this because I don't feel good. Like I feel stressed. I feel
Yeah.
exhausted and maybe like that's more what I'm trying to communicate with them rather
Ooh.
than me saying like hey, look how busy I am. Let's glorify it. Maybe I could just say to them, hey, you guys, like, I know you're asking me for plans, but I feel like I don't have the space for it this week. And let me reevaluate my priorities. It's almost like I don't know, like I'm not taking that extra step of thinking, like, what am I trying to actually communicate by
Wow.
sharing this? So I think that's, and it's almost like I'm making up for all the years I quote unquote lost being this like type A high performer and feeling like I missed out on multiple years of being productive. And so one thing in my own therapy I'm working on is I don't have to prove my worth through doing. My worth is who I am and just the person that I am and the kindness and the compassion and the empathy that I have. That's my value. My value is not what can I do for people. My value is not be a people pleaser and say yes to everything so that you never let someone down. My value isn't how do I do the most work and be the busiest out of all my friends. My value is in me being this beautiful, kind, empathetic human that I know that I am, and how do I just be and exist and find value in that?
Yeah, what I was coming to me is like, it's not what can I do for you? Who can I be for you? And
Yeah.
that's such a shift because it's not really like the people that we love the most. It's not what they do for us. It's who they are for us and
Mhm.
how they show up. And it's not even that they show up all the time for us, right? Because we're human. But yeah, not what can I do for you? Who can I be for you? And that's truly leading with your heart. And that's a position. That's a position to live from. So kind of speaking on that, that's a good segue to another question that I had of within, and I mean, you were just kind of saying that, like, sometimes I feel like I have to make up for what I lost, what I wasn't able to produce when I was laying in bed every day all week. How do we maintain that magnetism? First of all, what is magnetism in your definition? What is to be magnetic to you? And then how do we maintain that in the midst of chronic illness or in the midst of what you're saying, like in the midst of feeling like you're just
Mhm.
going all the time? What are the steps that we take to remain aligned, or what other steps that you take to remain aligned when we're in that busy season, which honestly we all find ourselves in every day?
Yeah. And so I think for me, like magnetism is so many things, but I feel like a lot of it is when you're in this just like abundance mindset and you have these like easy opportunities and friendships, and it's like everything is just coming to you without you doing a lot of this hard, heavy work. And so I don't know if you've ever met someone where you're instantly just like, oh my gosh, I want to be around this person. I don't
Yeah.
know what the quality is. Like, it's a combination of their personality and probably like the regulation of their nervous system and the beliefs and everything. Because, and I think a lot of it is to do with the nervous system, but our nervous systems actually speak to each other all the time. And you know this, it's a big part of co-regulation. And so if you have this like gut bad feeling about someone, that's usually their dysregulated nervous system communicating to yours and you don't know why. You can't figure out like this person's energy is not vibing with me. It's the same with magnetism where you're just like, I'm so drawn to this person. I remember there was a conference that I went to in San Diego maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. It's called Trafficking Conversion. It's for marketing. And there was this man, I barely even talked to him, but every time I saw him, I was like, I want to be by this man. It had nothing to do with how he looked. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. It was something about his energy that I just was like, I want more of that.
Mm.
And so I've always been interested in this concept my whole life, but when you're in this chronic illness journey, you're probably living in some of these lower vibration emotions. There's this emotional guidance scale that you can look up if you're not familiar with it. I think there's maybe 22, 23 emotions on it. And the lower ones are things like fear, anger, jealousy, guilt, shame. And then the higher ones, of course, are like love and abundance and all the happy things that we want. And when you're chronically ill, you are kind of, in a lot of cases, stuck down in these low vibrations.
Mm.
And so I think something that I really struggled with was, how do I still be like, I want to be that person that has that good energy and is magnetic and thinks in this growth mindset and not a scarcity mindset. But how do I do that in the midst of being sick? It's really
Mm.
hard because you're dealing with so much more. And so I think for me, like learning that I just need to be authentic. It's not about like being perfect and showing up perfectly. It's about, how do I show up genuinely, authentically loving myself first? Because I think learning that piece of it, it's really hard for you to go into the world if you have this like, betrayal relationship with your body like I had. You can't be magnetic. Like you really have
Mm.
to feel all of the like inner parts of you. And also part of it too is learning boundaries. Like
Mm.
magnetic people are not yes people. They're people that know themselves and they're able to say, I would love to do that, but I can't. And maybe there's no more explanation than that. That's something that I always struggle with is saying no to plans. I don't want to disappoint people. And I feel
Yeah.
like I over explain, like, oh, I can't go tonight because, and then I like list five
Oh.
reasons. You don't have to do that. Your no can just be your no. And part of the magnetism for me, a lot of it was learning about growth mindset and like, abundance and getting out of scarcity mindset. And I actually, one of the big things that moved the needle for me, I joined this, there are these two women that I followed. They're called Elevate the Globe. They're not, I don't think they're around as a brand anymore, but they did Kundalini yoga and they did all of this teaching around like abundance and prosperity. And I joined their subscription service and they had these like practices that I would do every day. And there was this prosperity meditation that I got up. I had my little morning routine. It was like getting myself onto the right foot every morning and kind of getting in that mindset of like good things are going to happen and we're going to welcome in all of these good things. And it was this crazy, like there was like little like hand mudras and things that you would do. But I remember when I was actively doing it, it was like I was every giveaway I won. Every like opportunity that I had, all of a sudden I was winning like gifts or I got like $100 in the mail or just like all these things were happening. And I was like, there's no other explanation than like me focusing on this. So I think there's a lot of things, trusting your intuition and learning that, regulating your nervous system. Look up some Kundalini prosperity meditations. I'm sure they're on YouTube, but I found those to be really helpful. And then just really like being your genuine, authentic self. I feel like that's the most magnetic. If you're with someone who's confident in themselves and they know their boundaries and they're not afraid to assert them in a kind way,
Mm.
that to me is like, okay, that's the ultimate. Like you're not being performative, you're not feeling like you're having to be someone else. You're just embodying your true self. And I feel like people can really sense that.
Mm. How did you learn how to do that when you felt like your body was betraying you, when you felt,
Yeah.
um, broken?
hmm I think a lot of it was just, I hate saying this, but I feel like at first I would just kind of was going through the motions of it because I knew that I wanted that.
Yeah.
But I had to work through a lot of that inner sort of turmoil. And I did that by actively doing, right? So, like,
Mm.
I started this prosperity meditation when I did not feel prosperous at all. And it's almost like a fake it till you make it. And the more that I practiced it, the more that I felt those like inner beliefs about me shifting because it was something that you could do sitting. So it didn't
Mm.
have to exert a lot of energy. And so that was really nice for me to be like, I know where I want to go. I know I want to be this person that people want to be around, and I know I'm not that right now, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I feel like I was very much in a victim mindset and very much like poor me. And I was like,
Mm.
that's not, I don't want to be that person. Like, I can be
No.
sick, but I can also be working toward abundance. And I really think that was a huge part of the healing journey for me was just like finding people I aligned with, following their teachings, and like I unfollowed a lot of Facebook groups of people who had Lyme disease because they it was very depressing. It was very much like, here's this horrible symptom. Am I ever going to get better? And all negativity all the time. Because when you're healed, you don't really spend time in those groups. Like, I
Mm.
don't now. And I feel like I should go share my story and just like offer hope, but you don't. Typically, you leave and you move on with your life. So, I I basically changed like the atmosphere I was putting myself in. I stopped listing symptoms. I started listing gratitude and wins. I stopped
Wow.
following those Facebook groups. I started following these like abundance and prosperity and like yogis and all of these. Like I totally changed the landscape of my social media feed. And it was all people like that. And like you were saying, and people always say, like, you become a combination of the five people that you're around the most. I think it's the same for the content you're consuming. Like, you become what you consume. So if you're always looking at, like, videos of people getting hurt or, like, just like the news and all of this, like, I think that does affect your energy and sort of like your inner, like, the inner body. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it was I changed the landscape, I changed my habits. And that was easy to do. And then it was like, okay, now let's sit down and do the work every day. And eventually I just felt like it came naturally to me, but it didn't at first. It felt like work. And
Mm.
I don't really have a great answer other than like with the working out, I was like, I don't like where I am now. This is where I want to be. So what are the steps I need to take in order to get there? Because that's how my brain works. I'm a very like practical, like let's get it done person. So I
Yeah.
did the same thing with this. I was like, I want to be this type of person. So like, what are the steps? What do I do? And then it's almost just like you just do it until you get there.
No, I love that, and I think it's important to note knowing where you want to be, knowing where you're going, knowing where you want to go, and you don't have to know every single step. You don't have to know where you want to be in every single area of your life, but just like I'm not the person that plays the victim, knowing that, and then reverse engineering it. Okay, so if I'm not the victim, then I'm the victor, right? Like I am positive and I am magnetic, or I know I'm happy or abundant, and then you have your direction, so now that I'm not the victim. And I love that you brought up all of that about what the content that you're creating, the music that you're listening to, like everything that you're taking in. It's not just the people that you choose to surround yourself with. It's you are taking in so much information, and some you can't affect, right? If you're in a job that you don't love your coworkers and you can't get out of that job right now, there's so many other areas of your life that you can have control over. One being music, two being social media, three being the people that you surround yourself with outside of work, how you surround yourself with those people inside of work. You don't have to be talking to all of them all the time, and you can keep your visits short if they don't align with you, or if you feel like they're not bringing the energy that you want. I think all of that is super, super helpful and super tangible. I'm a really tangible person as well. So I want to kind of zoom out just to begin to wrap things up of where are you now? So this eventually led you into marketing for functional medicine, and you shared a little bit of you kind of chose functional medicine because that was part of the journey that you went on with your healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah, so I maybe 7 years ago started my own business and started working with supplement companies and practitioners, and prior to that I had worked as an employee at similar companies. So maybe the last 12 years I've been in that space. But yeah, I just kind of went out on my own and started thinking about when I was sick, what did I want? What were the problems that I was facing? And one of the things was I could not find the right practitioner. I couldn't really find who could help me. I didn't fully know even what was wrong. And I feel like I spun my wheels a lot with, starting with new practitioners. I did hundreds, I swear, of protocols and different, try different things,
Yeah.
dozens of intake, appointments with people. And so I started thinking about why didn't that work out? And I think a lot of cases it was sort of like an energy or like a personality mismatch. Like, yeah, this person deals with Lyme disease, but they don't believe the same things that I do. And if I were to talk to them about this like abundance mindset, they would laugh, right? It's like, oh, that's not science. That's not going to help
Yeah.
you. Like that's not, we can't measure that on a lab, but that was important to me. And so a lot of times I would find someone who could treat the root cause, but didn't listen to like all the other pieces that I felt were important. And so, one thing that I've been developing is these archetypes. So there's a practitioner version, there's a patient version, and there's going to be a wellness brand version soon. And so I'm building an app that everybody can take that intake quiz, and then the app will actually change all of the content based on your archetype. So if
Whoa.
you're a data-driven practitioner, you're going to see like studies and lab results, and it's going to be explained to you in a way that's important to you. And there's also like a whole matching logic that will match like patients. Here's your best match practitioner based on the archetype, based on their root causes, maybe location. I mean, there's multiple factors. So I'm hoping that it will just cut down all of the time and the money and the effort that people spend in trying to get better by matching with somebody that understands your philosophy. Maybe it's important to you that your practitioner can handle the mental, emotional, spiritual side.
Mm.
Or, maybe it's important to you that they also consider traditional Chinese medicine, whatever the case may be, and also match to your root cause. So that's what I've been working on. And I think it's been really beautiful to kind of come full circle and say, like, had I had this 10 years ago, I feel like that really would have helped my journey. It would have cut down on a lot of that, like, painful time and spending that I went through. So I'm hoping that it can be something really, really useful for people.
I think that sounds so fun, and I love that you have it broken into the patient and then the practitioner and then wellness brand eventually will be really fun. I wish I would have taken it because I want to talk about my archetype, but share a couple of the other archetypes. Like you did share the data-driven one.
Yeah.
How many archetypes
So
are
there's
there?
there's 15 for
Okay.
each, so patient and practitioner. And there's a one-to-one match for each, and then there's sort of like a couple good matches, and then there's a couple where it's like, ooh, maybe be a little cautious. So for example, one of the patient ones is the research warrior. So I don't know if you ever know patients who come to you with like endless ideas and here's a 30-page, thing I typed out. This is what I think is going on.
Yeah.
The person that just, really wants to like be actively involved. One of my favorite ones on the practitioner side is the rebel disruptor. So that's the one who's not afraid to like speak out about, here's what's really going on in the world and here's the myths I'm gonna bust and your practitioner hasn't been telling you this. Here's the truth. They're very much like truth tellers.
Mm.
And so yeah, there's a lot of different personalities. There's the biohacking clinician who's the one that's using like the aura ring and like all the wearables. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not a biohacker though. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah. No, I'm curious to hear about what yours is. But yeah, and then there's ones that are like the wellness guide, who's very much course driven, education. They want to kind of build platforms and educate many rather than just doing these like one-on-ones. So
Mm.
yeah, I would love if everyone listening wants to take it. If you just go to upsellhealth.com/archetype, it'll let you pick patient, practitioner, brand. So
Cool.
you'll find it easily. But yeah, you should take it and I can email you a full report so that you can see if it's
Oh,
here.
fun. What is yours?
So I'm the Phoenix, which makes
Okay.
total sense. So that's the person that went through their whole own healing journey, and that's what
Ah.
they're using to help others heal. And that's obviously like the main part of my story is, hey, I've lived through this for 10 years, and like this is what I'm doing now to kind of help other people live through it. So yeah, Phoenix, I feel like is a perfect fit for me.
Yeah. Oh, so fun. Thanks for sharing that. And absolutely, I'll add the link below in the description. So if you're interested in taking the quiz, you can very easily. Second to last question would be, is there anything that you feel like we didn't talk about today that has been on your heart that you really feel called to share or discuss?
Um, I would say, I guess like the main thing that has been on my mind so much is like, how do we regulate our nervous systems in the state of the current world? Because I feel like people who are sick right now have this added layer of everything going on in the world and how dysregulating that can be. So I almost feel like even people who don't have chronic conditions need to hear this, right? Because just existing right now and seeing the news and seeing things like flash across my phone on social media, even if I'm not following them, like a lot of times I'll see these like popular stories pop up, and so I really feel like there's going to be this call for all people, even in like this post-COVID world. I know COVID is still kind of around, but
Mm.
um, this whole like collective trauma that we went through, and now we're going through this additional trauma of everything happening. And so I think honestly, nervous system regulation is going to be a lot more mainstream than it even is now because there's going to be a deep need for it. So I'm happy that we're able to talk about this and just hopefully reach people that are like, I've never had to think about my health, but maybe I do feel like I'm a little off and I'm more stressed and I'm anxious and I'm just kind of feeling, disconnected. I think it could be a symptom of this whole like collective trauma that everyone's living
Mm-hmm.
through right now. And so even if you're not someone that deals with chronic pain or chronic illness, I think it's all still important for you to look into nervous system.
Mm. Yeah, such an important thing. Like there's so many different levels of dysregulation, and some people are very dysregulated, some people are just kind of that low level dysregulation. And then we go through different times where we're very dysregulated or regulated or just a little bit dysregulated. So
Yeah.
learning the tools is always gonna be serving. So I guess that will be my last question then. What is one of your favorite tools? Not like the tool. There's not
Mhm.
just one tool, but what is one of your favorite tools that you find yourself coming back to over and over again that really serves you to regulate your nervous system?
It's so that I actually have this like 90-second mini protocol that you
Mm.
can do anywhere. I just call it my regulation reset, but it has to do with just breath work. So
Mm.
exhaling longer than you're inhaling is a great way to activate your parasympathetic. So part of it is to do with that. Part of it is to do with feeling like your feet on the ground, or if you're sitting, like feeling that connection with the chair and like feeling into your body, because I feel like a lot of times we don't do that unless we stop and think. And this is something that I always tell people is now like look around the room and just name three things sort of to like ground yourself in this space.
Mm.
And then it's a little bit of breath work. And then at the end, one thing I like to do, and I call it co-regulating with yourself, but I just have like the my hand on my chest here and my other hand on my stomach, and I'm just feeling like this hand on my chest is so comforting. I feel like it's just like a little weighted blanket and just
Mhm.
touching my own body and being comfortable doing that. But then the hand on my belly, like feeling it go like in and out as I'm breathing so that we're not breathing from our chest up here. So it's something that I do sometimes in public because I'm like, well, no one's gonna be able to know. The only thing they're gonna see is me doing this, which is like fine. I'm like, who cares? But
Mhm.
so that's kind of like my basic little regulation reset protocol. It's 90 seconds long, but I feel like it's very, very useful. And then if that doesn't calm me down, I do a round of EFT and
Mhm.
just do some tapping. But yeah, I feel like things as simple as that. And you can also look into bilateral stimulation. So like tapping on different sides of your shoulder while you're sort of like hugging yourself is really
Mhm.
helpful too.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are just some quick, free, easy little mini protocols that I like to do.
Mm, and super easy to do anywhere, even like not maybe while you're driving, but 90 seconds. You can sit in your car for 90
Or
seconds
yeah,
when you get to where you're going and do this protocol and
yeah.
see how it makes you feel. See if you feel any different walking into maybe a stressful meeting or work even
100%.
in the morning. Just
100%.
do it
Yeah.
in your car. That would be fun. Yeah, I like that because you're really combining quite a few different pieces
Yeah.
of like
Yep.
grounding and establishing presence where you are and the breath work. I mean, it's like I paid you to say that because I do breath work and that's exactly what I say. I'm like, did you know that if you breathe out longer, I mean, that's a tool that you can just bring with you
So easy.
wherever you go. Just breathe out longer than you're breathing in. and you're going to be stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system. It's so easy. Make it like so easy that it's stupid, like it's like, there's no way. Actually, it does work
Yeah,
though. There
it
is a
does.
way.
It really does. I know. And people are always like, that's it. And I'm like, try it. You'll notice.
It is. Oh, Allie, thank you so much. You have such a beautiful grounding presence, and thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for being open and vulnerable and sharing your journey, not only when you're going through it, but also where you've come out and where you are today. And, I'm excited to see where you are in 10 and 20 years from now. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here. Truly, your support and love is the foundation of this community and this podcast. If you find yourself in a season of life ready to explore your inner landscape deeper, or perhaps you feel like you've tried all the things and nothing has worked, here's your gentle invitation to come back home. Align and Embody is my signature coaching container that is created to explore our soma, our living wholeness. Perhaps the answers you seek truly do live within. You just need to learn the communication of your body. Align and Embody combines the 3 pillars of my business: human design, somatic breathwork, and cycle alignment. Head to the link in this description to learn more, or better yet, reach out on Instagram @_journey-to-well. I'd be honored to connect with you. Be well on this journey, my friend. Talk soon.